Hi everyone, it's so good to be here. I'm Gbenga Adeku, as you've heard, and I'm an upcycle artist. How many of us, by show of hands, would agree with me that TikTok proved that we are in an attention and interest-driven world? Okay, and this leads me to the story of 3 PET bottles. The first one is named Bayo. The second one is named Chioma, and the last one is named Aminat. These bottles were named after their previous owners, and I'll be telling you the story of their journey. Bayo was thrown out of the window of a vehicle and landed on the road in Obafemi Awolowo University. Picked the next day by cleaners, dropped at a landfill. It takes between 400 years to 1,000 years for Bayo to become a liquid poison called lachet. This poison is going to affect the ground and is going to affect every source of water connected to it. That is the tragic end of Bayo. Down to Chioma. Chioma was dropped in the drainage, carried by flood to the river, from rivers to the ocean. It joins one of the 5 largest patch of garbage, and over a space of 200 years to about 700 years, it becomes tiny plastics called microplastics. Tiny fishes feed on these microplastics thinking it's food, and bigger fishes like the tuna feeds on the tiny fishes, and eventually it comes to the plate. This is not just the tragic end of Chioma, but also the potential tragic end of whoever is eating that fish. Now to Aminat. Aminat understands the difference between purpose span and lifespan. So we all have these plastic bottles in front of us, and we'll all be drinking from them because, yeah, we'll get thirsty as time goes on. But immediately after 7 hours, you will need another glass of water or another bottle. And then it means the very purpose of this PET bottle is to satisfy you for just 7 hours. Meanwhile, the lifespan of the material bringing that water to you is between 200 to over a millennium. That's a lot. This leads to upcycle. On this projection, you will find the picture of a work that's talking about the tragic end of Chioma. This artwork was made from PET bottles, from bottle covers of plastics melted to look like food. So here you have a buffet in front of you that you cannot actually eat. Okay, upcycle is defined by Fields in 1994 as, I call recycling downcycling. What we need is upcycling, thanks to which old products are given a higher, not a lower value. By now, we can already tell the difference between recycling and downcycling and upcycling. If you can't, I'll just explain it briefly. Recycling requires that this same plastic becomes smashed, and just like what happens to Amina became splashed into tiny pieces to wash the melted down, eventually became furniture, toys, and things that would have longer usage, so it doesn't go back to the environment or poison anybody. So we could see the difference between these 3 bottles and how they ended. 2 ended tragically, while the other one is actually good for us. So thinking upcycle makes us to think about the material itself and how we can apply it into our very lives. Art as an entity has the most important power of imagination. Artists think unlimitedly, or let me say, artists think without limits when we are trying to create things. An example is Michelangelo. Michelangelo will see a stone sitting somewhere, and he says that, okay, I'm looking at that stone, and I'm going to chip out everything that is not what the human being I want to see. So like, he sees a stone, he removes everything that is not David, and now we could have a beautiful sculpture of David sitting, and everybody around the world admires that piece today. So I'll be talking about 2 of my elderly friends. One said, everything you can imagine is real. He's an artist, and his name is Pablo Picasso. The other person is not an artist, but he said he is an artist because he said I'm as much of an artist because I can draw with my imagination. Imaginations are more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. And that is Albert Einstein. So we can see how the scientist and the artist almost think alike. The strange thing about art is an artist is trying to create a piece from what he feels, but the process of creating that piece is always science. And that process becomes adopted into many other things. That leads us to imaginative problem solving. How many of us have seen this movie, Frankenstein? Okay, it's really an old movie, so I won't be surprised if you've not seen it. And it's somewhat horror-like. Yeah. This movie came from Mary Shelley's book, novel, science fiction novel. This book had inspired so many things in the world today. The revolution of a world being powered by electric, not fossil fuel, but it didn't just start that way. Immediately that book was written, and a young scientist by the name L. Baker saw the book, read the book. He was fascinated by the technology of electricity. He invented what we call the pacemaker, the pace setter. And what that machine does is, you must have seen it in movies, if you put it on people's chest, or during emergencies, they use it for people who are in a state of coma to revive them or help people correct their heartbeats in a period of time. This machine itself has saved millions of people, including the scientist himself, on 2 occasions. Now, this technology went on to inspire people like Thomas Edison, Tesla, and till today. This same book is responsible for inspiring organ transplants in the medical world. Many other things have been inspired by art, such as our cell phone, space travel. A lot of things currently going on ordinarily starts by us just liking the idea from a novel or from a movie or from an artwork. That leads us to need and want. Usually, human beings do not make decisions based on logic. So we already know plastic is bad for our environment. But how proactive do we suddenly get until we become a bit attached to it? And this is where upcycle comes in place. Upcycle applies this waste in such a way that the pieces no longer look like waste. And in fact, they become attractive. They become things of taste. So you could see the need right in that slide. There is that garbage place that looks like a river filled with trash. And then you could see another artwork that would be nice to sit in your sitting room. They are both made of the same very material, but you would like to have one and you would rather reject the other. So it's like an idea of everyone liking to drive a very exclusive car or a very expensive ride instead of, how many of us would rather drive a Tesla or a Ferrari instead of any other common car? Most of us will, exactly. So that is what Upcycle does. Upcycle begins to adapt this waste into places where they become emotionally attached to people. People begin to like them, functionally usable for a long period of time. And that's way it can begin to inspire what we call public adoption. Yeah. The next thing I'll be focusing on is how art is the father of material exploration. Just as I mentioned earlier, if an artist is trying to create a piece, that process is science. That science becomes adopted in so many other phases. So clay modeling in automobile, photography in laboratory science, and so many other things. Those things just started from art. Now, moving down to my personal experience. How many of us have experienced what we called AKA breakfast? A long list of us, definitely. And so that was the aha moment for me, beginning to think about plastics as human beings or as entities. I had I was properly served a nice breakfast. And it was in the time of COVID-19. So I had that. So I had that walk, I had that nature walk where I was in my environment and I saw this bridge that was filled with a lot of plastic. And it was not down the line. This protesting also happened in 2020 where youths were like NSARS and everything. And I felt like, oh, I could relate with these youths. I mean, many of these guys are probably tech guys or guys who work so hard to make a living for themselves. And now, if you're using an iPhone, it's dangerous for you. And so I could feel like I'm doing so much for the country, for the value that I bring, and I'm being trashed. And so a lot of plastics are here, gathering, stopping the bridge, and I could relate to the feelings that people have. So I began to sculpt ants out of PET bottles because ants are just like every one of us, all carry value in our different spaces. We all operate, we all have something or the other that we can benefit the world with. And the more we work together, we can actually build a viable economy on waste, because that's exactly what ants do. And so I would say that an ant does not make a colony, but an ant can show the colony a crumb. And that crumb can literally keep the ants throughout the doomsday. Thank you very much.